What's going on, people? So, in today's episode, I'm talking about how to create a supporter, a fan, a customer, if you like, because that's what we're all at here, especially if we run a business or starting a business or whatever. We want fans, we want customers, we want supporters, but how do we get them? So, everyone wants fans, right? Everyone wants a fan base. But how exactly do you create a fan? Let's talk about it. What's going on, people? My name is Tony Az, and I'm a rapper that loves singing, making music 20 years, semi-seriously 10 years, very seriously the last 2 years. This podcast provides tips and ideas for emerging independent artists. This is how I'm living now. This is how I'm living. All right, what's going on, people? Welcome to another episode, and this one is literally coming off the cuff in the sense of previous episodes, I've had them written down. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do an episode on that, do an episode on that, do an episode on that. But literally, I'm sitting here and thinking over my own strategies and just debating with myself on what I got to do to just push the needle a little bit further, push the bar a little bit further. And ultimately, everything comes down to building a fan base, building a customer, because a fan customer is the same thing. The titles will be interchangeable when I'm talking about them. So from a music point of view now, I was thinking, okay, how do you really create a fan? And these are things that we might know, obviously. It's kind of those things that we kind of take for granted. Well, if I speak about my case, I've taken it for granted. Like, you just create a fan, isn't it? How do you create a fan of your music? Like, and it's not something I've ever asked myself, and it's not really something I've had. It's not really a conversation I've had or overheard or been privy to when I'm having conversations with numerous artists over the years that we've been having these conversations. Do you get what I'm saying? So I started breaking it down. And again, like I say, these are things that might seem obvious, but I think it's really important because ultimately we're going from, and I hope everyone understands that the point of this podcast really and truly is to help us all go from we're just creatives, we're just artists, we just rap and sing for the sake of it, to we are running a business that happens to do music, that happens to sell music. So when we come to the business side of things now, how do we create a fan? Now, maybe previously, if you were getting signed or whatever, your record company people and managers and A&Rs and all these people might know this and have this down to a T, but maybe us as artists that are DIY artists doing it ourselves, maybe a lot of us have not thought about this. So I thought, let me do the episode. Anyway, say all that to say this. How do you create a fan? This is how I've broken it down. Ultimately, to get anyone to buy into anything, you need to provide them value. From a music fan point of view, I guess you have to provide them music that is going to entertain them, inspire them, educate them, whatever. 9 times out of 10, I guess it's an entertainment value thing. So you need to be providing music that is entertaining people. Okay, so that's stage one. Okay, the content has to entertain. The content has to, even above the entertain, you have to provide value, right? So that's point one. It got me thinking. Second thing I was thinking, you need a story. You really need a story, because how many people out there, or how many good songs are out there? Do you get what I mean? And I started thinking, okay, who's the last artists, like big artists I discovered, quote unquote, and became a fan of? And for me, it was Russ. Now, a lot of you may or may not have heard of Russ. I literally only heard about Russ about a year ago. He's obviously been doing his thing for a little while. But I heard about him through a friend. And my friend heard about him because he heard his story. He heard his hook. Because it's the hook that has to bring you into a story, right? And I think his whole thing was, this is an independent, unknown guy making millions. That was his story. How did he do it? So that's the story that got my friend interested, that then made my friend pass on the story to me and tell me about the story. Have you heard of this guy that no one's heard about but is doing big things in music and he's a millionaire? I was like, what? Never heard of him. So that's the hook. That's his story. And then from then on, I was like, okay, well, let me read into whoever this guy is. And I started reading into him, understanding his story. And then, you learn about how he released 1 track a day or 1 track every week for a whole year, blah, 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 did all of that kind of stuff. And then at some point, obviously, I listened to his music. So I'm thinking, to create a fan, you need not only good music and a lot of good music, because another thing, and this is a point I actually got from Russ, no one's going to become a fan of you off of one song. So if I think about the Russ example, I went to Spotify or YouTube, I just typed his name in, the first song that came up, I listened to it, I kind of liked it, I was like, all right, it's all right, what else have you got? And then I started going through the rest of the songs. Now, maybe out of 10 songs, I might have only liked 6 or 7, but he had enough content there to keep me coming back and to keep me digging more. Do you see what I'm saying? So if he only had that one song, if you think about one hit wonders, they have that one song and it's like, okay, cool. You've got someone attentions now. They found you, they discover you on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, and they like that song. What do we naturally want to do next? We're like, oh, I like that song. Let's see what else they got going on. If they have no other song going on, if I think about the Russ example, if he didn't have any other songs for me to listen to bar that one song and he had a decent story, I'd be like, all right, cool. I'll move on to the next one and I'll keep an eye out for you. One day I might hear about you again. But he had a story, a narrative, which I guess helps you paint a picture of this person. So they're not just some, you know what I mean? They're not just some random robot somewhere, some fictitious character somewhere. It's an actual real person and this is their story. And then to add to that, they had a catalogue of tunes. Do you get what I'm saying? And I even followed his model. I was releasing a song every week on Spotify. I did it for about 20 weeks. I did it for, no, not 20 weeks, but all in all, I did it so that I had 20 songs on Spotify, because my idea was, well, if someone discovers me from whichever one of these songs, when they tap in now and say, okay, let me listen to what else Tony has got going on, there's another 19 songs at least for you to listen to. I don't even think that's enough, but I thought, okay, 20's decent. At that time, I was like, okay, let me just put 20 songs out. So whoever finds me, you have 20 songs of mine to listen to, which give you a good representation of who I am as an artist. And hopefully that will hook you and at least entice you to stay here a little bit longer. Then you listen to my songs, then you click through, you come to my Instagram, and then you will learn about my story. You will learn that I used to be a school teacher. I left my school teaching job to be a musician. I'm a stay-at-home dad to 3 kids, and I'm juggling my fatherhood and my music career, and that is my story. And through all of that, through everything I'm experiencing, I share my tips and ideas with fellow artists, and maybe sharing tips and ideas that they maybe didn't think of that might help them. That's my story. Do you see what I'm saying? So coming back to the original point of this podcast, how do we create a fan? It's something to think about, and I think it's something we shouldn't take for granted. Don't just assume you make a banging tune and that's what's going to create a fan. No, it's almost like we have to get into the psyche of a fan. What made you become a fan of whoever you're a fan of now, and kind of go through that psyche and that process, because it's going to be the same thing when someone discovers you. What's going to make them become a fan of you? And by fan, I'm not talking just listen once. I'm talking about someone that's been like, yo, blah, blah, I love blah, blah. They start raving and ranting about you, tell their friends about you, be checking for new music from you, buy merchandise from you, buying into you, following what you're doing, etc., etc. That's what I determine as a fan, as a customer, not someone just going to listen once and throw it away. So that's today's episode. Like I say, it was off the cuff. I hope it has all made sense, but it's literally as I'm sitting here going through my own process, because everything I preach, I practice. As I'm going through my own process, I thought, you know what? Hopefully this potentially might help someone and make sense to somebody. So if it's brought you value, thank you for listening. And yeah, go forth and let's create these fans, create these fan base. But let's get into the psyche of what actually creates a fan and move strategically and do that. Thanks for listening. So that's the end of today's episode. I really hope it brought you value. Do leave me a comment and let me know. In the meantime, check out my book, 10 Terrible Tips, Misleading Misinformation About Making It in Music, available from my website, TonyAsOfficial.com.
We're going.
Yo, follow me on Instagram as well, at TonyAsOfficial.
Where we go, we don't know it yet. No.